KSI is looking to step up his competition, eyeing Tommy Fury as his next fight, as well as obviously calling out Jake Paul, and in this video I'm going to be breaking down his new style. So yeah, KSI does have a new style that he has been honing in on, which I do believe is dangerous. And right away it is obvious that KSI is unorthodox, but that does make him a tougher fighter to face than some other traditional fighters, as you never know what he's going to do. He's always on his toes, mixing it up with feints and darting in and out of range. A couple of months ago, he put out a series of tweets saying it's taken a while to understand and get the technique right, but I think it's time to show the world now. And he proceeded saying, "My new technique is unconventional, but it works for me. Just wait and see." So yeah, since then we saw KSI's new technique in action when he fought FaZe Temperrr as well as Joe Fournier. As in his 3 return events, we've seen him more and more of this new style. In his first 2, when he fought 2 fights in one night, we saw his new ability to change angles, being able to cut his opponents off and close all sides of the ring. He came back at a much lighter weight, having cut a lot and obviously adapting his new styles, as that was the first time we saw him in action since he started training at the London Shoot Fighters, which was a couple of months into 2020, where against his opponents he really just walked them down, non-stop coming forward and throwing a barrage of punches, taking care of both Swarmz and Pineda pretty easily on that night. But in terms of his technique, he didn't change that much since his last couple fights. Yes, his skills obviously did get much sharper. You could definitely tell that he did improve, and he was training for those couple of years that he was off. But each fight, he is making more and more clear improvements and getting better between each camp, which is definitely a good sign, showing that he hasn't yet hit his ceiling in the sport and he's still evolving, still adapting, and still growing. In his fight against FaZe Temperrr earlier this year, we saw the transition from just raw force to actual technical ability, utilizing a karate stance bounce during the first round to knock out Temperrr with a clean combination of a right to a left hook, which is a very unorthodox technique, which while can be risky if missed or caught coming in, it is very rewarding if landing, as obviously we saw that on the night. KSI getting a devastating knockout and showing more versatility in this one. And this was very reminiscent, and comparisons were made to his notable training partner Michael Venom Page, who in MMA is known for his crazy and unique diverse striking, having some crazy knockouts in the sport of boxing himself. But yeah, KSI didn't just have one mode where he was just hunting down his opponent on the front foot. He had another gear where he was bouncing on his toes and was blitzing into range with different combinations with an in and out style, showing some explosiveness as well that we've never really seen from KSI. And then in his last fight against Joe Fournier, we did see another adaptation to this technique. Instead of implementing it a little bit later on in the round, KSI did start the fight with his bounce and pretty much used it for the majority of the fight. He landed a quick right hand off the jump and exploding into range, overwhelming Joe with numerous overhand rights in this fight, which the overhands were just money for him, and he definitely showed his versatility compared to his opponent, who was pretty one-dimensional. As KSI also went to the body in this one, and while it did end in a controversial elbow, KSI definitely showed improvements. He was able to outbox the 9-0 pro in Joe Fournier, and darting in and out of range wherever he needed to, throwing short overhands over the top and landing flush numerous times in that fight, but definitely not being as wild as he used to be. It's not what you would typically see in a boxing match, but I do think that that is a good thing for KSI. We know that KSI is a pressure fighter, and his team have definitely worked on just ramping up what he's good at, pretty much just honing in on his power, speed, and explosiveness tenfold, which is what I do feel like works for him right now. If KSI was just working on his fundamental basics in boxing, at this point I don't think he'd ever be able to catch up to someone like Tommy Fury, who's been boxing his whole life. But because of how unique his new style is, I do think that it does benefit KSI, as it's not only harder to train for a guy as unorthodox as KSI, but it also gives him a much better chance of beating these guys, as he's explosive, uses his raw athleticism to his advantage, and especially for guys at this level such as Jake Paul or Tommy Fury, I do feel like his new style is vital in order to beat those guys, as it's not like KSI has world title aspirations like someone like Jake Paul or Tommy Fury who say they want to be a world champion in the sport. His goals are just to be the best in this space, which is crossover boxing, influencer boxing, YouTube boxing, whatever you want to call it, which is why I feel like his style is perfect for what he is trying to accomplish. He's not masking things, he's not trying to be a boxer, he's just trying to beat the likes of Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, who right now are not high-level pro boxers and haven't been in there with anyone like KSI, which again, I'm not saying he's the most technical boxer, but he does have some great attributes. He's athletic, he's fast, and he's really dedicated. He's been improving every camp and every fight, and he also fights at his natural weight, so instead of draining himself like most other guys in the scene do, he's fighting at around his walk-around weight, which while at first glance is a disadvantage, but for his style it could make him more agile, faster, and be able to outbox guys that are bigger than him. And while being at his natural weight, we see him at 100%. We know that KSI has the heart, but he has really started to develop his skills in explosiveness with his karate blitzing and his better boxing IQ that he showed in his last fight. KSI has a very MMA fighter-esque style. Obviously ironic how he did knock out his last opponent with an elbow, but his technique is very karate-like. On his toes, bouncing back and forth, and even being able to switch stance and use his offense as well as his defense. Mostly all based off of his movement rather than a traditional boxing guard. But he does have decent reactions, and I do feel like this style does suit him well, as he trains at a MMA predominant gym at Shoot Fighters, but they also have trained some good boxers. As I mentioned, they have guys like Michael Venom Page, but also host guys like Idris Virgo, Derek Chisora, as well as David Haye. And I do feel like if they're able to tidy up KSI's technique, he would be potentially the most dangerous guy in this entire scene. A big problem obviously can come facing a counterpuncher who will really punish him for his mistakes. And while he's a danger for any of these guys, KSI's style is very active and he has to be careful not to stay into range for too long, as he usually leaves himself pretty exposed and could get countered if he misses. Someone like Tommy Fury likes to sit on shots on the back foot and use his jab effectively. A good jab will cause KSI problems, especially when he's in his other gear, not as active and just in a traditional guard. And even Jake Paul would be a tricky style to go up against, as if he really sits down on a counter left hook or a right hand over the top coming in, it could cause KSI some real problems. So he definitely does have to work on his defensive holes, which is why I feel like he does have to mask his shots more and always keep his opponents guessing. He can't just be doing the same thing over and over, or he will get found out by anyone good. Some punches like his overhands have gotten much tighter and much faster, and he's really learned how to throw with grounded power rather than just flailing his arms and walking forward. And KSI also did talk to Ariel Helwani about his new technique on the MMA Hour.
Believe it or not, like it's
exhausting,
it's a really
right?
hard style. No, but it's a hard style to fight.
Oh,
but
right.
yes,
Yeah.
it is also exhausting to do.
Yes.
Like especially for 6 rounds. I have the fitness to do it for 6 rounds, and I'm sure my next fight, 8, whatever, I'll be able to. I'll make sure I have the fitness to do it for as many rounds as I want. But that is my defense. My legs are my defense. I know a lot of people, they're like slipping and parrying and all this and that. My defense is my legs. And that's also my attack. So I'm able to switch from attack to defense really quickly. A lot of people go, oh, I'll be able to beat KSI. I'll be able to beat KSI. Get in the ring with me and you understand it's horrifying, because you don't really know what to do.
But I do think his style is completely risk versus reward, and while he can leave himself open, he is explosive. And while at first glance people think that KSI has no technique, he has improved tremendously. He's made some impressive leaps and bounce from the last couple of fights that he's had, and has been able to adapt this new style into his game, which I do feel like is very dangerous. He's explosive, hard to find out, and has just honed in on what really works for him, which is what I feel like is the right approach. Like he did say, he is unconventional, but I do feel like that can work to his advantage, especially in these kind of fights against Jake Paul or Tommy, as they're used to seeing traditional boxers who will just stick to the fundamentals. So yeah, I do feel like KSI's new style is definitely interesting. In the last year, he's definitely come pretty far with it, and it's going to be interesting to see where he's going to be taking this within the next year. Potentially getting bigger and bigger fights against Tommy Fury, Jake Paul, as those are the ones that he says he wants next. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on KSI's new style and how you see him faring against the likes of Jake Paul or Tommy Fury. But yeah, that's it for this breakdown, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn your notifications on for more.